Hi, my name is Akela Thigpen, and I live in Greenville, North Carolina. I am a digital cinematography student at Full Sail University Online. This podcast is my final project in the History of Motion Picture Arts class, entitled Cartoons, and Oh, How They Have Changed. Cartoons have long existed on the tubes of broadcast television, consigned to the shadowy regions of weekday afternoons and Saturday mornings. The Flintstones and The Simpsons have been the only two primetime series that have lasted more than 2 seasons. Many of the television cartoon characters with which we are the most familiar, Bugs Bunny, Mickey Mouse, Daffy Duck, Popeye, were not actually designed for television, but rather were initially exhibited in cinema theaters. Let's take a look.
Cartoons initially evolved in the teens, but their development was slowed by their prohibitive cost. Animation became more economically feasible in 1914 when Earl Hurd patented the animation cell. The cell is a sheet of transparent celluloid that is placed on top of the background drawing. By using cells, the animator need only to redraw the portions of the image that move, thus saving considerable time and expense. At the same time that sound and color film technologies were popularized, studios also found ways to streamline the animation process by using storyboards to plan the cartoon and departmentalizing the steps of the process. Thus, something resembling an assembly line was created for animation, making it much more cost-effective. Producer Walt Disney was the leader in using these technologies and devising an effective mode of cartoon production. Steamboat Willie, 1928, was the first significant cartoon with synchronized sound, and Flowers and Trees, 1932, was the first to use the 3-color Technicolor process, which became the cinema's principal color process in the late 1930s. The final key to the success of cartoon was an effective distribution system. During the silent era, cartoons had been created by small studios with limited access to cinema theaters. In the 1930s, major studios such as Paramount, Warner's, Universal, and MGM each signed distribution deals with the cartoon studios, or they created their own cartoon departments. The late 1930s to 1950s were a golden era for the cartoon, and it is from this era that most theatrical cartoons on television are drawn. Cartoons started their immigration to television in the late 1940s when one of the smaller studios, Van Buren, began marketing their catalog to early children's programs such as Movies for Small Fry. Other, larger studios were slower to take advantage of the electronic medium. In 1948, the major studios were forced by the U.S. Supreme Court to divvy themselves of their theaters, which greatly weakened their ability to distribute their product. In this weakened state, they also had to compete with television for viewers. Disney, however, was among the first of the major cartoon studios to develop a liaison with television networks. Its long-running programs, Disneyland, later known as, among other things, The Wonderful World of Disney, and The Mickey Mouse Club, included cartoons among live-action shorts and other materials when they premiered in the mid-1950s. The other studios soon followed suit, and by 1960, most theatrical films and cartoons were also available to be shown on television. The first successful designed-for-television cartoon was not created for a TV network, but rather was released directly into syndication. Crusader Rabbit, created by Jay Ward of Rocky and the Bullwinkle fame, and Alexander Anderson, was first distributed in 1949. Network television cartooning came along 8 years later. The network's first cartoon series was The Rough and the Ready Show, which was developed by the most successful producers of television cartoons, Bill Hanna and Joe Barbara. Hanna-Barbera's The Flintstones, 1960, was Primetime's first successful cartoon series. It was also Primetime's last successful series until the premiere of The Simpsons, 1989. With Crusader Rabbit, The Rough and the Ready Show, and the Flintstones, the characteristics of the made-for-TV cartoon were established. Since the early 1960s, when cartoons became an established television feature, they have been the source of two major controversies: commercialization, which is merchandising, and violence. These two issues have been taken on special significance with cartoon, since so many of its viewers are impressionable children. Commercialization and merchandising have been part of the cartooning since comic strips first began appearing in newspapers. The level of merchandising increased in the 1980s. However, as several cartoon programs were built around already existing commercial products, Strawberry Shortcake, The Smurfs, He-Man, and etc. Unlike the merchandising of, for instance, Mickey Mouse, these cartoon characters began as products, and thus their cartoons were little more than extended commercials for the products themselves. It became more and more difficult for the child viewers to discern where the cartoon ended and where the commercial began. The complicated issue of violence on television and its potential impact on behavior has yet to be resolved. But in response to critics of cartoon violence, broadcasters have censored violent scenes from many theatrical films shown on television. Cartoons, and oh, how they have changed.